Do you know who I am? I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me.
Listen, big deal. You got another problem. Women always figure out the truth. Always.
This is so nuts. I mean, listen to what you're saying. It's paranoid delusion. It's really sad. It's pathetic.
Am I? Or am I so sane that you just blew your mind?
That is the weirdest thing you have ever said.
It's the Al Travis Show, and she is a big deal. She's Melisa Lopez Franzen, a senator. That's what I knew her as. And she's on the program with us. She wants your vote for Senate, U.S. Senate. Senator, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Al?
I'm doing really well.
I miss you.
I was going to say the same thing. Little background. When I was doing Between the Lines, the cable show, and I did it for too many years, one of the first people who treated me well on your side, I don't mean that anyone treated me poorly, but you were one who was always willing to come on the program, even though Al's the right-wing knucklehead guy. You came on. I enjoy you immensely as far as just a person goes, your personality. You say it like it is. We might vote differently, but I've always just really loved you as a person. You light up when we talk about your family. We'll do that. I appreciate you. Now you're running for Senate and you come on my little show. I thank you for doing that. I really do.
I enjoy the conversation, and I like people. I genuinely like people.
Yeah. So let's go. Well, let's start with your history. So your family now. The last I remember, your two twins, right? Are they twins?
They're 14 months apart. They feel twins, but they're two boys, 8 and 9.
They're 8 and 9. Oh my gosh! I guess it's been so long. I guess I was thinking they graduated college by now. 8 and 9. And your husband, what does he do?
Renewable energy utility scale projects. So he'll be building solar and wind all over the country.
I probably shouldn't say this, but I guess we're friends on Facebook or something, and I see you at Christmas time when you go home to the family. Where are you from? You just, yeah.
Yes, I grew up in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and you send some of the greatest you put it on the Facebook. You have such a fun time with your family, your clan. I mean, you're a family person, right? I mean, that's what you are.
Going to grandma's every weekend after church.
Yeah.
It was always with cousins and playing outside and eating lots of food. And that's what we do. We eat a lot and we gather.
Yeah. I'm just saying it is fun to watch through the Facebook when that happens. So how do you get to Minnesota? Give us your background. You were a senator. I mean, we got to talk about that and how long. How did you get there and what did you do for a living before the Senate? Maybe.
Sure. So I ended up coming to Minnesota. I almost ended up in Michigan, but I'm glad I didn't. I came here for grad school. So I went to the University of Minnesota and I had a scholarship to attend the Humphrey Institute. I did my master's in public policy. And right away met my husband, who's from Little Falls, Minnesota. I thought he was a frat boy, but he ended up being a farm boy. And met in statistics, and we're gonna celebrate our 20th anniversary, marriage anniversary.
Congratulations.
January. So it's been, and now we have two beautiful kids. So I never thought I'd be here forever, but I always, since I moved to Minnesota, I got really active in the community, and that's how it all started.
But political science, so you lean that way. This is something you knew you wanted, policy and being in this.
Yes.
Is this your thought?
Well, where I grew up, government was the largest employer. Never a good thing, right? So we knew it was very much ingrained in everyday life. And I wanted to be behind the scenes working on good government. So I did my public policy degree, and economic development was my concentration. And then I went to law school at Hamlin, and ended up obviously staying here, getting married. And then I decided to do that in Minnesota, and I became very active in my community, was on local boards, nonprofit boards.
Where is your community, by the way? What do you call home?
So I first lived in St. Paul, and then moved over. Our first house was in St. Paul, and my husband was working in Chanhassen, and that was a long commute.
Yeah.
As soon as I graduated from Hamlin, we moved west, and this was in the middle of the housing bubble back then in 2006. So we couldn't find a house. So then we found this house, and we instantly put an offer in. And then after we closed on it, and this is in Edina, Hopkins School District, and they even told us that. I'm like, I don't know what that means. We found a house, we're going to buy it. And didn't realize it was like a kosher kitchen when we
that is so funny.
Quickly that we just you know.
we moved west from St. Paul to Eagan. Okay, yeah, big. You make it sound like a wagon trail, and we moved west for the gold. Okay, so you get there and you get married. What got you to run? It was Senate your first? Were you House first? I don't know your background.
First, and everybody asked me, why don't you run for school board or why don't you run for council first? And I'm like, well, I was recruited by a friend. At that point, I was working in Target, and I was an attorney in the government relations side. So I was working in public policy for the major retailer, and realized that I think 2010 was when it hit me. It's like the Tea Party I thought was extreme at that point. I'm like, just people should just do their jobs, focus on making sure government is stable for businesses. And it wasn't really, it was too much rhetoric. I thought that was kind of loud back then. Fast forward to now, but that's when I decided to jump in. And we did not have children, so I was door knocking with my husband all over the place, and people thought I looked really young. So over and over again, I would tell people, it's like, well, Walter Mondale was 33 when I was 32 when he was appointed Attorney General. I'm 31, so I'm whatever. It was something to the effect that he was young, move on.
So that was how long ago? When did you first become senator?
In 2012. So I ran in 2012 when we had a couple constitutional amendments. People were really ready to vote, and it was we flipped the district from red to blue. I ran as a moderate pro-business Democrat. So I've always been working in the middle with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Been very successful, and that's, I think, how at the end of my 10 years in the Senate, I was elected by my colleagues to be the Senate minority leader. People are like, you're going to make us all moderates. I'm like, I'm not making anybody moderate. I'm going to work to win back the Senate, which we did. And then I left because I was redistricted with another colleague in the Senate. So I ended up leaving politics for the last couple of years.
You can say leaving politics, but if I'm not mistaken, you went to the University of Minnesota as their political guy, right? I mean, you were the liaison between the Senate.
So I left the Senate post in 2023 was like when we finished that, wrapped up my 10-year service, and I went back to my business. I had started a public relations small business in Minneapolis, and I went back to that, and then I got tapped on the shoulder to apply and work on the University of Minnesota. I was looking for executive director to lead their advocacy efforts, and it was basically barren. It was the university needed to be understood in both Republican and Democratic sides. And the first thing out, we just needed to show up. So I was showing up. You want to show up and say,
it's amazing how many jobs that's true right there.
Well, show up at the legislature and say thank you for $1.5 billion that you give us every 2 years to fund our operations. And here's what we do. And here's what we invest in. So I think that misunderstanding of like, it's just a transaction, that doesn't work. People want to know, and they're always going to be critics of the university for whatever reason. We talked about it earlier. But if you understand the importance of this public institution for everyday lives, you don't have to go to higher education to benefit from higher education. Your doctor went to higher education. Your nurse did too, etc.
Absolutely correct. Now, just to get us before we go into the break. So you're sitting around doing a little work for the U, you're showing up. Appreciate that. And then the senator says she's out. Senator Smith says she's out. I think Lieutenant Governor signed up within like a minute and a half, 90 seconds, which I found unbelievable in that. Don't you have to talk to somebody? I mean, the rest of the family. You got in relatively quickly as well. I guess my point to you is, were you ready? Were you looking for the next thing? And that's why you're ready? I mean, didn't you have to talk to the husband and the kids and say, by the way, Mom will be away and I'm probably going to miss your graduation and 9 years from now? What did you have to do? Give me what happens when you found out that seat was open.
Well, and I'll go back 8 years ago when Al Franken stepped down, and I thought about running, and I had a press release ready, and I was basically told to, chill out for
stand down.
8 years later, I'm 8 years stronger and certainly more experience under my belt. So I knew then when I left the Senate, because I was redistricted, I had a choice to either run against a colleague or move, and I chose either of those options. I had a bad card dealt to me. But then, I stepped away from politics and policy, and I missed it. And I knew that I could do it at the university, but in a different fashion. So when this came up, it was more about what I was seeing at the federal level was completely devastating to the university and to everyday lives. So I just saw that this is an opportunity to get back into public service where I think I can contribute even more than I could have 8 years ago. Certainly, I talked to my husband about it. Obviously, I didn't jump in right away.
You smile when you talk about it, so I mean, I know that this is like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Well, my husband
now
said,
in the picture he's smiling,
but going to happen.
Okay. And is he pretty cool with that? I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying my husband's a little bit of reservations, but he backs me 100%. This idea that my wife would take on such a massive, and I don't mean this as man-woman thing, but such a massive undertaking that would, no one knows how hard it is to run until you've been a part of it. That would scare me if I was him, and I'm not man-woman thing.
Truth be told, he was scared of our safety is really what it came down to. So we have 2 young children, and politics is not the same as it was 10 years ago or even more. Yeah. So I'm really concerned about safety, and I am not running to be, radical, loud voice. I want to do the job. I want to do the public policy that I'm trained to do, that I think we need to have good, stable government. Public institutions have a purpose and a public good that they deliver. And what I'm seeing is dismantling of the foundation, the fabric of what we need as good government. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be small. It has to be efficient, and it has to meet the needs of the people. And right now we have an opportunity. I see it as a glass half full that we can come back and do something better than what the framework that we had, because, the United States voted for this president. He won. So he's doing what he said he was going to do, maybe more. But
we'll talk about that on the other side. I just want to get that feeling for that, because I am telling folks, I help with, again, Jim Hagener's campaign for Congress. That's one district. When you run for an entire state, the amount of time, effort, and willpower to do this, I'm giving you all the credit in the world. There's a lot of people running, but people don't know. I know that you knew it when you told your husband. I knew your husband knew it when you told him, I think I want to do this. He understands how upsetting the apple cart that is. And for the good. I'm not ripping it at all. We'll go to break. We'll talk about what you mean when you talk about he won, and maybe he's doing it right, maybe he's not. We'll talk about that after this with Melisa Lopez Franzen. She wants your vote for U.S. Senate.
Chanhassen Dinner Theaters brings you its most popular show of all time, Grease. You'll hear all your favorite hits from the Broadway musical and the movie. Join the whole gang at Rydell High. We'll sing, we'll dance, we'll bring you back to high school life in the 50s. Poodle skirts, bobby socks, the soda shop, and drive-in movies. Grease! It'll rock your socks off. Order your tickets today. Visit chanhassendt.com.
If it's your turn to host a game, Grandpa's Barbecue suggests you try something different. Put out the perfect barbecue flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. Add it to your ribs, dip the meatballs, or drench your wings in the original flavor of Grandpa's Barbecue. It isn't too hot or spicy, fruity or smoky or whatever. Grandpa's Barbecue. Available in select stores and online at grandpasbarbecueshop.com.
Still on the YouTube, Facebook thing, just your affirmation for your group. Rochester joins us tomorrow, and we get 2 more stations next month. We'll be at 10 radio stations outstate Minnesota, so have your folks keep that in mind. Fair enough?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I trust your feeling I'm giving you a fair shake. I'm not.
No, yeah, no. Okay. It's all good.
I get weird asking about families, because I don't know how many people, like you say, you got to worry enough about them. Do I bring up you have 2 boys? I don't want to go down the road, but your family makes you up. That's why, like, when I watched your Facebook post, I'm like, Christmas, she lights up. That you're a Christmas card waiting to happen. And so anyway, we're up in 1 minute. Okay.
amongst friends. The Al Travis Show. Nothing but talk.
We've got our Melisa Lopez Franzen, the senator. You might know her, Senator Franzen. That's how I know her. She wants your vote for U.S. Senate. And before we went to break, you brought up, I presume you're speaking of Mr. Trump, President Trump, and he got elected. The majority of people said this is what we want. He seems to, at a very rapid pace, trying to deliver on what he said he was going to do. Good news, bad news, I suppose, what side you're on. I find no one I know says they're happy with the waste or the fraud or any of that stuff. Everybody's against it. But how you go about doing it seems to be making the difference. You smile a little bit. Seems to be making a little bit of difference. Your thoughts on the whole Doge thing, and looking at Minnesota, I think we need a little Minnesota Doge. But you're running for U.S. Senate.
Well, and, policy and decision making, whether it's in government or in business, you look at the dashboard, right? You see where are we bleeding, where are inefficiencies, and you target, whatever you're doing. Here you're seeing across the board, and it just doesn't seem thoughtful. And I think you have to take some time to really understand the implications and the unintended consequences of your actions. For instance, people are really concerned about the Postal Service closing because it has ramifications all over the state. People rely on the Postal Service. You get your 73-cent stamp. If you privatize that, if it goes away, you're going to pay more, or you're not going to get your mail coming to your house. You're going to have to drive an hour to, wherever it is to get your meds or get your checks and your Social Security. So people are now concerned, and I'm traveling out to all 87 counties. That is something that I said when I announced that I was running, because it's important to talk to people and meet them where they're at. I don't expect it to come to me in a town hall. I did town halls my 10 years in the Senate. Of course, that's part of the job. I don't have the job yet, but I want to go to people where they're at. We were right now, this last weekend, we were in Montevideo and Madison and Wilmer, and people are showing up. 200 people were showing up on a protest on a Saturday before Easter because they are not happy with how fast the pace, to your point, and they're concerned about what it's going to mean to them.
Where do I find out when you come to Faribault? Is it on your website or something? Because if you're going to come to my town, you're personally going to send me.
You probably get them.
Well, you got to put it on your website so I can follow along. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so you're going to do all.
Our website.
You're doing all 87 counties. It's by the way, Melisa 4. That's spelled out. Melisa 4 Minnesota spelled out.com. Just so people know, I want to get it out. Give me in the 2 minutes, because I talk too much. Your 2-minute elevator speech on why you and not one of the other Dems. This thing, you're lining up. You guys start a football team that want to get on that U.S. Senate seat. Why you, not the others, and then why you opposed to whoever will be the Republican?
Well, and first of all, I would say I'm taking this very, very seriously. I left my University of Minnesota job so I can devote 100% to really talking to folks and meet them where they're at. Like I said, I think people need to be heard. We come from the top and say, this is what you all need. No, we need to hear what people actually feel, and how, when we were in International Falls, I was talking to a business owner, has a coffee shop, roasts his beans, and he's 6 blocks away from Canada. And 30% of his customers are now not coming because Canadians are now no longer his patrons. So those are the implications of, you mentioned earlier, whether you're talking to someone else, was about the tariffs. Like, nobody really cared about tariffs until now. They care about tariffs because they can see their products going up, and they can see that customers are not coming. And we have a border with Canada. It's going to hurt us a little bit more because if you're a farmer in Owatonna, you bring your fertilizer from Canada, it's going to cost you, or maybe you won't be able to get it. So there are real implications to people's lives, and I'm more of a policy wonk, and I want to make sure we have good, stable conditions for businesses to thrive. I was a small business owner. I worked in a large corporation, and I've also been in the public sector. So I bring that experience to say, we need to hear from all sides to see it's not a one-size-fits-all proposition when we're doing all these policies at the federal level. It's a partnership. Certainly, our farmers are concerned. We should be concerned because can they export their grains to China or other places in the country, and are they going to lose money, and how are we going to help them? But also teachers are concerned. They're losing their jobs. This is going to have impacts, at the very local level. So we really need to understand. Right now, they're talking about Head Start cuts. That's for the poorest students and it's going to hit rural communities more than ever. So all these things to say, I will be listening to people, bringing solutions with people, not to them. and they'll be along for the ride. This is a really important, you mentioned this is a really hard job. It is a hard job. It's also a hard election because you're representing the entire state. So you have to really have time to understand the entire state. And I've been doing that in my work at the university. Extension was part of the university. So I was able to understand those connections between public education and farmers and on the local level and the 4-H club, etc.
I have to fly because we're up against a heartbreak. Melisa4Minnesota.com. I do love the fact you're in. I think the race is the hardest part of all this. When you get to be a senator, they take pretty good care of you. Good luck on that. And again, I've always known Melisa as someone you can get a hold of and talk to, and she's very good about that. So I thank you for doing this program. And I love the fact you listened to the last half hour with Heather Dugan. Yeah, I talked about tariffs. No one talked about them until like 6 months ago, and now we have to know everything about them. I'm not that smart a learner. Thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Al.